dear young brothers and sisters of the new generation of Hindustan, Namaskar. In this episode today of our exploration of the true history of Hindustan and the review of the technical and scientific status of Hindustan before the arrival of the invaders, and our attempt to know about some of the most important acharyas or scientists of Hindustan, we will see three more acharyas or scientists of Hindustan. And with this episode, we will be concluding this section of this series of episodes. In this episode, let us remember three acharyas. They are Acharya Aryabhata or Sage Aryabhata, Sage Bharadwaj, and Acharya Chanakya. When we talk about Aryabhata, let us remember that he was the first person on the surface of the earth stated that the planet Earth is moving around the sun and not the sun rotating around the earth. And only hundreds of years later, the Western astronomers and scientists could recognize this fact. And he was also a great mathematician. When we think about Acharya Bharadwaj, please remember that probably he was the first person who invented the aeronautical engineering, and he was a person who lived in the 4th century BC. The proof for that we shall see later. And as far as Acharya Chanakya is concerned, probably he was the best economist and the best manager ever lived on the surface of this earth. So let us have more details about them. Aryabhat or Aryabhata was a master astronomer and mathematician born in AD 476 in Kusumpur in Bihar. In AD 499, he wrote a text on astronomy and an unparalleled treatise on the mathematics called Aryabhatiyam. He formulated the process of calculating motion of the planets and the time of eclipses. Aryabhata was the first to proclaim that the earth is round or is a globe, and it rotates on its axis and orbits around the sun and is suspended in the space. And this affirmation he made about 1000 years before Copernicus, who published his heliocentric theory. Aryabhata had described his discovery about the rotation of the earth around the sun in such a simple way that any person without any technical or scientific preparation can understand this fact in a very simple way, because he compared the earth moving around the sun to a boat moving in a river with some people sitting in that boat. And the people in the boat can see the objects fixed on the ground on both sides of the river moving in a direction opposite to the direction of the movement of the boat. So in this way, he simplified the fact, and then it was so simple for the common man to understand that if he see the stars and the sun are moving, that is only an impression, but the reality is that the sun and the stars are fixed and only the earth is moving. And these are all proofs of the documentations or documents prepared by Aryabhata for many of his books here also. See, the next sage we are now remembering is Sage Bharadwaj or Acharya Bharadwaj. And when we talk about Acharya Bharadwaj, it is to be remembered that in AD 1875, a book named the Vaimanika Shastra, which was written in 4th century BC by this sage or this Acharya or Maharshi Bharadwaj, was discovered in an old temple in North India. And this book contained a lot of information about aeronautical engineering. And an engineer of Hindustan His name is Shivakar Bapuji Talpade. And he collected information from that book and he invented an aeroplane. And he could fly that aeroplane 8 years before the Wright brothers invented the aeroplane. But unfortunately, the British who were ruling Hindustan during that time, they buried this information. They had hidden this information and nobody knew about engineer Shivakar Bapuji Talpade. And in our schools, we are taught that the aeroplane was invented by the Wright brothers. And nobody mentioned about engineer Shivakar Bapuji Talpade, who invented the aeroplane 8 years before it was invented by the Wright brothers. See how much it is important to understand these facts. The next sage or Acharya we are going to remember in this episode is Acharya Chanakya or sage Chanakya, who lived between 350 BC and 283 BC. As I have already mentioned, he was the best economist. He wrote Arthashastra, it's economics, and Niti Shastra, ethics, and these are two most important books of Acharya Chanakya. And here is another information. He opposed Alexander, the so-called Alexander the Great, when Alexander tried to invade Hindustan. And another important information about Acharya Chanakya is that he was the trainer, the teacher, and the mentor of the great emperor Chandragupta Maurya, who was one of the most glorious emperor of the Maurya Empire. Here we have some more information about Acharya Chanakya. That is, Chanakya, who lived in the 3rd century BC, was a leadership guru for excellence. His ideas on how to identify leaders and groom them to govern a country has been well documented in his book Kaudilya's Arthashastra. He was responsible to bring down the Nanda dynasty and established his able student Chandragupta Maurya, as I have mentioned, on the throne as the emperor. Hence, he is called also a kingmaker. Chanakya defines the 5 principles of management, and they are listed here. First, the means of starting undertakings, that is, assignments and projects. Second, excellence of men and materials. Third, suitable place and time. Fourth, provisions against failures. Fifth, accomplishment of work through desire to learn, power of retention, thorough understanding, intentness on truth, ability to lead an army, and sweetness of speech. All the principles and theories about economics and management taught in the most famous universities around the world since many years are based on the fundamentals established by Acharya Chanakya and documented his books Arthashastra and Niti Shastra around 300 BC. This is a fact. With this episode, since we are going to conclude our rapid review about the technical and scientific position or level or status of Hindustan before the arrival of the invaders and destruction of the nation, and also our attempt to know some of the most important acharyas or sages or scientists of Hindustan. Before concluding this episode, let us have a rapid look on the first 2 universities ever existed on this planet, which were in Hindustan. Here we have a photograph of the world's first university, that's a Takshashila University, which was totally destroyed by the Islamic invaders. These are the remnants. And please don't forget that when they lit fire to the library of this university, it remained burning for almost 3 months. And you can just imagine the quantity of treasures. Treasures, I mean the documents and books, as we have seen in some of the previous episodes, which were completely destroyed and completely burned out. The Taxila University was established around 700 BC. That's about 700 years before the birth of Jesus Christ. There are several narrations and descriptions in many books that Jesus Christ, who disappeared from Palestine at the age of 12, came to India, and he was a student of the Taxila University until he was 30 years of age. And it is from this university, and it is from Hindustan, he learned the principles that Aham Brahmasmi, Loga Samasta Sukhino Pavandu, Vasudhaiva Kudumbagam, Sarva Mangalam Pavadu, etc., etc. And when he returned to Palestine at the age of 30, he tried to preach and practice those principles there, and that was the reason why he was crucified by the people there at the age of 33. And if you study some historical facts very clearly and try to read in between the lines, it is almost 99% possible that the information which I had stated before can be true. Here we have some more information about the University of Taxila. It is more than 10,000 students studied there, and those students were from various parts of the world. In addition to India, it is the Babylon, Greece, Arabia, China, and also from Japan, Korea, etc. And about 68 different subjects were taught in Taxila University. Some of the important professors were Kautilya, Panini, Vishnu Sharma, Jeevax, etc. And the subjects taught in Taxila University included these subjects that are algebra, geometry, astronomy, Ayurveda, medicine, surgery, metallurgy, linguistics, hypnotism, meditation, philosophy, art, music, religion, economics, architecture, technology, physics, chemistry, weaponry, magic, etc. And the second university ever existed on the surface of this earth is the Nalanda University. And here we have a brief description about the Nalanda University. Thanks to our late President, Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam, fortunately, the Nalanda University is now recovered, and it is revamped, and it is now in a functioning state in a very exemplary manner. I sincerely hope that this information are interesting to you, and if you feel so, please try to share these episodes with your friends and relatives. So thank you very much for paying attention to my words. See you in the next episode. Jai Hind.